All right, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the next chat clinic. Let me make sure that my computer is set here properly. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, good. When I've been doing my team meetings lately through Zoom, all of a sudden my microphone will cut out, and I haven't figured out why, but been trying to work on clearing that up. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to the weekly chat clinic. For those of you who are new to our chat clinics, I'm especially glad to have you here. What these are is, as many of you know, in previous years, the University of Texas at Dallas would hold clinics on weekends. Because of social distancing, we're not able to do that, and I'm no longer with the University of Texas at Dallas. So I decided to just do these Thursday evening meetings with people so we can hear the latest news about what's coming up in FTC and hear about any problems that people are having, or just to share tips or information among coaches and teams as we're going through the season. So tonight is, of course, the last one of these before kickoff, which will be on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to kickoff on Saturday. I'm sure a lot of people are as well. I'm wondering how many people have been waiting for the game to come out before deciding if they're going to register for the season. So we'll find out. But I think that when people see this year's game, you're going to like it. I have seen the game because I'm the representative for North Texas, and I have a couple of game fields here that I've been working on putting together this week. And I like it. I think it's going to be a very interesting challenge that a lot of people will like. Before I begin with news, I'll just open the floor up. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they wish to ask about, or a topic that's been burning on their mind this week, or as we're heading into the kickoff? You can either unmute or you can post them in the Q&A in the chat window. Not hearing anything. Tonight we have a little bit of a smaller group. I'm not too surprised about that because everybody's trying to get ready for kickoff this weekend. But one of these times I'm going to have everybody go through the group and just say who you are and what group you're with, what team you're with, and things like that. I see Scott is listed there with the Thunder Chicks. One of my favorite teams. Always a good team to have on hand. Scott, did you get the email? Did you get the email I sent out today or early this morning or whenever?
I did get one. I didn't get a chance to go through it all.
Oh, that's fine. I'm wanting to make sure my emails are going out too. I'm having to redo all of my tools because my return addresses have changed, my logins have all changed, my access to things have all changed, and so forth. And so, and one of the challenges this year is that for many, for teams that haven't registered yet, if you're a rookie team and you haven't paid your registration fee, I know about you. If you're a veteran team, if you've competed in previous seasons, but you haven't paid your registration fee yet, I don't have your email address yet through First because we don't know if you're coming back or not. So if you get a chance, if you want to make sure you're getting all of the announcements going out to coaches and the like, please be sure and send me your email address, and I'll make sure you're on the list even if you haven't registered yet. So that's a pretty important thing to include in there. I went back. I know many of you answered the survey that was sent out by First in Texas over the summer, basically asking if you had a field available and whether or not you would be competing, and any thoughts you had about the possibility of remote events. And so if you took that survey, I went back and went ahead and grabbed your contact addresses to make sure that you would be included in that as well. Just to try and get the word out to as many people as we can. Again, I'll just pause real quick. Any other questions? Type them in the chat window and so forth. My original plan for tonight was I was hoping to have a demonstration of a possible new navigation system for autonomous. But let me just go grab the piece real quick, and then it'll be another couple of weeks before I'm ready to show it. But I'll just show what we're looking at. 1 second. Well, I can't find it, so I'm going to just pull it up on the web, and so on. Many people have asked in the past, last season, how 7172 did this. A bunch of other teams and other places did this, where they would use what are called tracking wheels, and the tracking wheels would enable their robot to know where it was on the field. And so, just to give an example of what that can look like. Here's one of the tracking wheels that 7172 prototyped for their robot this last year. It's an Omni wheel attached to an encoder. And you put 3 of these on the bottom of your robot. They're not powered, but they are in contact with the floor. And then as the robot moves on the field, the tracking wheel can keep track of where the robot has actually moved. And it will keep this information even if your robot gets moved by another robot, but your powered wheels aren't spinning. Or if your powered wheels are slipping, then you're not relying on those encoders for positioning of your robot. You're using the tracking wheel to do it. And so last year, 7172 did tracking wheels on their robot, and that enabled them in autonomous to do some pretty nice navigation in autonomous in terms of getting from place to place on the field and being able to pick up stones and do it efficiently. This year, what we found over the summer, and we're not sure if it's going to be FTC legal or not this year. It was declared FTC legal last year, and I'm going to pull it up here and find it. T265 tracking camera, and I'll switch over to it, is one of these. So let me switch over to that window. There we go. It's a tracking camera. And what this is a camera that can go on a robot or some other vehicle of some sort, and it keeps track of where your robot is by using image processing around the room. And it has onboard processing with it. It's also got an onboard IMU, an inertial measurement unit, that you can use. So you stick one of these on your robot, and we're still working on the interfacing of this device between the device itself and the Rev control hub. There's a couple of other teams that have worked on it. But in our initial test that my team did a few weeks ago, it was extremely accurate. Like, they could drive the robot around the field and return to a same spot, and the tracking camera knew where it was on the field to within 5 millimeters all the time. And so it was really, really impressive stuff, and that's a lot easier for odometry. Again, working out the programming to get this device to talk to a Rev control hub is still something that is being worked out, but it's a feature that we're going to be looking at this year. Other teams have been looking at as well, and we're hoping that FTC, the Game Design Committee, will declare it legal to be on a robot.
So
I can see it going either way. Go ahead.
Is that over the full 2.5 minutes of the match?
It was over 30
even
seconds of autonomous.
Okay.
Right. And we didn't take a video, but that's what I want to do, is do a demonstration. But we took the sample drivetrain that I had built. We just stuck the camera on it, and we drove around a field, and we made a corner intersection where you could park the robot, and that way you knew you were in the same spot, like almost like you were driving to the same position on the field. And so just drive around, let the robot spin, do all of its things, and then go drive back to that spot. And it always knew that the robot had not moved more than 5 millimeters from where it had started. It knew it to that degree of accuracy. And we did some other tests, like moving it 1 meter to the side and measuring it, and the tracking camera was accurate to within just a few millimeters. It was really impressive.
Can you try it over like a little bit longer time than 30 seconds? I'm just curious how well it does over time.
Yes, we can. We will,
Because
right?
IMUs have that inherent error. So, you
Well,
know.
that's where the camera comes in, though. The camera is constantly correcting the IMU, right? And that's what's really nice about it, because if I go back to the video of it, I don't know how well you can see it in the what I'm broadcasting, but it actually has two separate cameras, so it has stereo vision in it, and it internally keeps track of whatever objects it senses. And
Nice.
so um, it's really nice. So it uses the IMU to along with the camera data to really come up with something that's, you know, really precise. And the way we found about it is that there were some FRC teams that were using this last year for FRC competitions, and they were claiming that, you know, over the course of an FRC match, that they were able to stay with sub-inch accuracy as well. So, I mean, the people who did it, they were like, oh yeah, this will be perfect for FTC. Over the course of the season, I'll bring little updates about, you know, progress with this camera. We'll find out if it ends up being useful for or allowed for FTC. It is a web camera. It is a USB web camera. It was declared legal last year. We'll just have to wait and see what happens for this upcoming year. So I'm looking forward to that demo. It'll be a great demo, even if they decide that it's not legal. So that'll be a lot of fun.
It was declared legal because it was UVC.
Yep.
Huh.
And because it's not programmable, right? So you're
Right.
allowed to have sensors that have onboard software, but not if you can change the firmware, and not if you can change the software. The other example of that that's been legal in FTC the past couple of years is the Pixie Cam. And I'll do a closer view of the Pixie Cam here, if I can. Many of you who've done robotics for a while, you'll be very familiar with the Pixie Cam. Let's see here. So the Pixie Cam, focus, da-da-da. It's a little camera. It will connect to a robot using, you can use I2C. There's a couple of other interfacing mechanisms to be able to use the Pixie Cam. It's got a little camera on one side of it. It's got a lot of onboard processing, so it can find blobs of color very, very quickly and tell you where those objects are that it sees. And there's some really good demonstrations of using a Pixie Cam.
What colors are looking for?
Whatever colors you train it to be. And it's very interesting that FTC, when for every year, they've said that training this device is not the same as programming it, so it's legal. Right, so you can train it and say, I'm looking for objects of this color. Last year, and I might have a demo video of this somewhere that I can get to quickly. But last year, one of my team members took a chassis with an intake on it that eventually became the robot, and he put the Pixie Cam in the front, and he had the robot automatically finding sky stones and intaking them. Like literally, he would just say, find a sky stone. And so using this camera, it would look for a big blotch of yellow, run towards that blotch of yellow, and the stone would automatically be intaked into the robot without him having to do any driving or manual control. So
so no
nice.
hints about color of objects this year? Wait 2 days?
Yeah, wait. I will tell you, some objects are red and some are blue. I can give
You're so helpful.
I can give you that hint, right? Some are red and some are blue, and some even have. I'm sorry, what?
How about yellow?
I'm not. Some are red and some are blue. Yeah, I'm not going to give any more hints beyond that by saying not or yes or anything like that. Y'all can wait. It's what? It's 40 hours away. Y'all can wait. It's 40 hours from now.
A whole 40 hours.
A whole 40 hours, right? So, so the Pixie Cam is one of the cameras that has been legal the last few years, and so I'm really curious to see if they declare this one legal. But again, because it was a UVC camera, they declared it was legal. Last year, my team used a servo payload drop. Let's see if I can find that website real quick. They found it on Amazon. So at the end of the match, if you remember, we're part of last year's game. Just a minute, I'm having trouble navigating my stuff here. Oh, that's why, because I put it down there. Last year, if you remember, in the end game, you could take a marker, and if you could drop the marker or place the marker on top of your skyscraper, then you got additional points for that. And so they needed a servo mechanism to do this. So they found something called a payload servo. And let me just pull it up here on Amazon, which is where they found it. And I'll broadcast that. Oops, I went to the wrong screen. Okay, so this is the payload servo, and it's hard to see from this image, but let me get to there we go. So it's a servo that is can plug into a servo port, and when you send it the appropriate servo command, it would release the little bottom part of the servo there and release it. You know, just it's designed for drones and the like, where you want to be able to fly it up in the air and then release something to fall to the ground. And so this servo, all it is a real micro servo, and there's a little pin inside of it. Let me escape from that. A little pin inside of the payload release part, and so the servo pulls back that pin and then releases it. So they found that. We sent a message to the Q&A forum saying, hey, is this legal? Because we were concerned this might violate the 1 degree of freedom rule, because obviously there's a servo inside, but it is pulling back on that little white lever and the pin that is there, and that seems like it would be potentially an extra degree of freedom over the servo. But the response came back. They said it's a servo, it hooks up, it's legal. And it was like, whoa, okay. So they tried it. They ended up not using it. It had a couple of other issues that they didn't like, but we were kind of genuinely surprised that the game committee approved that device last year. So you never really know what the game committee is going to allow or disallow, which is always kind of interesting. So anyway, the tracking camera, yeah, is an interesting device that we've been playing with, and we'll share updates on it throughout the season as we get there. Let me just pull it up one more time. And the size of this thing is tiny. It's so much easier than doing other stuff. It's they have the dimensions here at the bottom. So it's 12.5 millimeters thick, 24 millimeters, so about an inch tall. You know, a little less than an inch tall, and a little less than 2 inches wide. So it's a little tiny thing that would fit on a robot really well. And again, we got incredible initial results from using it with the Intel software, where it knew where the robot was really accurately. So that's something to look forward to in the future. Coming to a chat clinic near you sometime in the future. All right, any comments or questions about that? I have a couple of questions in the chat, which I'll get to in a second, but any other things that people want to add or suggest?
So I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we are talking about the sensors, right? So I'm kind of like, our team is kind of brand new. We were rookie last year. So I'm just trying to understand, is GPS sensors allowed, or
so I won't say they're disallowed, but I will say a couple of things about GPS sensors. So first of all, for any sensor that you come up with, you have to figure out how you can legally attach it to the control hub or to your system. And for the most part, the rules would prohibit or would sharply reduce your ability to do it as a GPS sensor. Most GPS sensors that I'm familiar with, at any rate, would attach through the USB device as a USB device. But you can't just attach any USB device according to the rules. The places where you can attach sensors are to the I2C interface, the digital interface, or the analog interface. And so if you said, well, I'm going to use a GPS sensor and I'll just plug it into the USB port, that's not legal. the example of that for my team is for doing navigation and tracking. They've long had the idea of, let's use an optical mouse. Let's put an optical mouse on the bottom of the robot. I mean, it's able to track things and be able to, you know, move around the field, and you'd know where it is that way just by using an optical mouse. And my answer to them is always, okay, but you have to figure out where you're going to plug it into the system. Which of the ports are you going to use? And they'll say, well, it's USB. And I'll say, that's not legal. And then they'll say, oh, well, we need to find an I2C version of the mouse. And I'm like, okay, good luck with that. They haven't found one yet. And then they would say, well, maybe we can make our own mouse. That's not legal either. You're not allowed to like create your own sensors with your own circuit boards and things like that. So they haven't been able to do that. A similar thing would happen with GPS. The other thing I would say about GPS is it's not accurate enough for FTC size fields. It would be, and not only that, but you can't even be guaranteed that it would work in the venues that you're in, because you know, if you're in a gym or something like that, the gym walls and ceilings are very likely to block the satellite signals, or at least interfere with them pretty significantly. And then GPS is only accurate to about a foot or more. You know, in many cases. And so if you're trying to use GPS to navigate on an FTC field, then you need about a foot resolution, and there are better ways to do it than that. So that's my comments on GPS. Does anybody else have anything to add? I suspect Kareem has a lot to say. He does all these sensor things.
Yeah. So we're playing with a GPS outdoor robot right now that can get us down to about 3 centimeters of accuracy. It's called GPS RTK.
Right.
But you cannot do that indoors. There's just no way. You're not going to get enough signal level. In fact, I would never use GPS indoors. You know, if you were like in an atrium that had a glass roof, maybe, you know, but I would never rely on it in indoor venues. Our test rig does get GPS fix indoors if there are windows in sight. But it's a really poor quality fix, and we don't get that fine resolution that we can get outdoors.
Okay.
And getting that fine resolution is there's a lot of work you got to do to do that, and it doesn't come, and you have to, I mean, it's also FTC illegal because you have to be able to get corrections from a separate source. So a separate, typically a wireless source if you have a mobile robot. And that is explicitly not allowed. And we do it through over an internet, broadband internet connection, but
Yep.
That also is not allowed.
Not allowed, and
there is no
not
way
available.
that you can do this with FTC. I will. So this is more like a beyond FTC thing. I will say that you can't. So the one that we are using has both a USB interface, and that's the one that we're using on the control hub. But it also has an I2C interface.
Oh, good. So you could potentially do it that way.
Yeah, but it's a $250 sensor because it does RTK and dual frequency, and it's not like a consumer level device, and it's just
right.
Very special purpose.
Thank you.
So, sure. Any other sensor questions? Okay, so I do have a question here from one of our participants, noting that for budget reasons, they only purchased half a field, and wondering if that would be sufficient for being able to participate in remote events. Officially, I'm not supposed to answer that question yet because it might give some things away. However, what I will say is you won't need a full field. So I will go that far, right? You won't need a full field. The issue of remote events is one that everybody in FIRST is very aware of, and that for many teams, it's a significant added expense to say, if you're competing remotely, you need to have some sort of an official field. And so FIRST, I think, has been pretty, they're pretty clear that they're not going to make you buy a full field set just to be able to compete in a remote event. So there is a way to do it. So if a half field set from Andy Mark will be sufficient, right, to be able to do a remote event if you're in a remote event. So I can put that much in. And I can't say anything else. I'll stop there. I'll stop there. I'm afraid I'm going to say something that's going to get me in trouble with the first police. And I already risked that earlier in the week on another call. So I'll just wait the 40 hours and go from there. Speaking of which, as we're looking at remote events and things like that, the big news of the week, of course, is that FIRST has moved the dates of the championship, the World Championship, to be later in the summer. So many of you will have seen that announcement come out earlier in the week. A blast was sent to many coaches and folks who are on the teams announcing that change in schedule. So the Houston Championship is scheduled for mid-July, although on a call yesterday, I actually heard late July. So, I mean, the dates are still fluid, but sometime in the mid to late July timeframe is when they're looking at doing the Houston World Championship, and then the Detroit Championship is early August. Are the dates that are being thrown around as far as the World Championship. And of course, the reason that FIRST is doing this is to give regions more time to hold events. And in their communications to the partners and to the event organizers, they've been pretty clear that, like, you know, we're giving you 3 more months of space, use it, right? Take advantage of it to do whatever you can to have a more a better season for your teams and your students. So where in the past few weeks where I've been talking about that we would not have any competitive events until January or February with our regional championship in March, it's possible that we may even be moving the regional championship into April. Depending on how the other sessions, such as the Texas State Championship, when they get scheduled and the like. And those discussions are ongoing right now within FIRST in Texas, among the partners, among the different regions, about how do we want our state schedules to look. But it is nice to know that you know, it's not going to be all crunched in before February, where we have to do everything remotely. It gives us a lot more options for hoping that things with the pandemic can turn around and there can be some solutions in place to be able to hold events later in the calendar year than what we've done in the past.
So, question:
Yes.
with them pushing it back late in the summer, how's that going to affect like the seniors for like school teams? How will that affect seniors? And
I can't answer that officially, but almost certainly the way that it has been done in the past is that if you were a senior on the team in 2020 in the season, you're allowed to compete in the summer, even if you've technically graduated. Right?
Okay.
So even though you graduated in May or June, you're still part of the team until the season is over. Right? So it's not like they're going to suddenly say, oh, a senior, you know, you're not able to drive or anything like that. Now, that will add some logistics for schools and school districts and teams to have to plan their summers, or, you know, to deal with a summer competition. But my personal opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, is that FIRST was looking at the possibility of having to say, well, we won't have a championship at all. And I think the decision was made, let's give ourselves the best opportunity we can to at least have a big event. And then, you know, we know that it may not be as big as it could be, and that it may pose some challenges for teams in the upcoming season to be able to attend a summer event. But at the same time, they'd rather have one than not have one at all. But back to the question of seniors, I would expect seniors, you know, if you have a team and they have seniors on it, they get to compete through the entire season until whenever it's officially declared ended, which is usually about the time of the World Championship.
Okay.
For the Texas Championship, the state championship, and the UIL championship, I'm sure those are going to be much closer to the school year boundaries, but they'll be the same sorts of considerations in terms of team members and who's allowed to be on the team and the like. So that was the big news of the week, and now that just means we're all reevaluating our schedules for the upcoming season. So my other message to folks, you know, who are in the North Texas area is, you know, be patient with us on the schedule. I know everybody kind of wants to know, are we doing remote or are we not? And when are the events going to be and so forth? And my answer is, I'm not making those decisions yet because it's too soon. We'll be looking at establishing those criteria in the October-November timeframe when we hopefully have a better idea. Well, first of all, when schools have a better idea of what kind of restrictions or what kind of openness they're allowed to have. I know that Plano ISD, which is where I personally live, today was their first day of in-person instruction, of going back to in-person instruction. So, you know, the schools are going to be learning how to deal with the pandemic issues. School districts, organizations will, and so the longer that we can postpone making commitments that we have to have events at certain times or certain type of events, I think the better off we'll be. Okay, any other comments or questions, especially about the season or upcoming events? Oh, I know the other question that people are going to want to know is, what does a remote event look like? And my answer is, and will be through September, I honestly don't know. The game manual part 2 for remote events will be coming out on Saturday. And so it will describe parts of the game and how the game will be played if you're in a remote format instead of how it will be played if you're in a traditional format. The logistics of exactly how it works and how scores get entered and reported and those sorts of details are still only going to be described in a general sense, because FIRST is still working on the computer systems to handle the remote events, to be able to allow those online scores to be put in and the details of that. And so even among the partners, when we have our calls with FIRST headquarters every couple of weeks, they keep telling us, you know, here's the new things we know about the remote system, but we can't tell you a lot of details because we're still working on the software to handle it. That is expected to be done sometime around the end of September, at which point we'll know about it, and then we'll be able to start scheduling some test events and see what will happen. In North Texas, I can say that we will be doing some remote scrimmages. So the remote scrimmages will be just like a remote event, but not count for competition. So no advancements or anything like that. But it will be a remote scrimmage, so people can have a lot of experience with the remote format prior to going to an official event. I'm really excited actually about the possibility of remote scrimmages, because that allows people to really test their robots beforehand and hopefully see what other teams are doing with their robots, and much like we would do with an in-person scrimmage, but without the challenges of finding a time and place when people can meet to do that. If it's possible for us to have in-person scrimmages, then we'll also look at doing that. It won't be as an official FIRST in Texas event, because FIRST in Texas has declared no in-person events through the end of the year. But if some organizations or schools or groups feel that, consistent with the health criteria in their area, that it would be okay to have an in-person event, while I can't sanction it from an official perspective, I certainly am not going to be looking to prohibit it in any way, because that would be outside our scope. So, but in terms of how do remote events look, please just bear with us as we bear with FIRST as they try to get it all put together here in the next few weeks. They've been working on it furiously all summer. It's kind of a new challenge for them about how do you handle scoring, when it's coming from 20 or 30 different locations over the course of a couple of days, and that's just for one remote event, when you have possibly hundreds or more of remote events all taking place at the same time. So I'm sure that'll be part of it as well. So this weekend is kickoff. The kickoff will begin at 11 o'clock Central Time, noon Eastern, from FIRST headquarters. The plan that we've been told to expect, although we were told yesterday they're still putting together their run of show, so they're not exactly sure what it's going to look like. I mean, they have a pretty good general sense, is that at 11 a.m. there will be a broadcast. It'll be streamed on Twitch and Twitch TV. The link for it is available from the Game and Season page at firstinspires.org for FTC. And they haven't published the link for the Twitch stream yet. They expected to do that on Friday, so tomorrow. So if you and your team members tune in to that channel on Saturday at 11, there will be it's expected to be about an hour-long kickoff broadcast where there will be some words from Ken Johnson, the head of FTC, followed by the game reveal video, followed by a full field walkthrough by one of the game design committee to talk about the components of the game and to take questions and answers. They are taking questions beforehand, so when you sign up for the Twitch stream, you can also submit any questions that you just know of in advance. You could go ahead and ask in that question, like, what color are the game elements if you want, and they'll probably show you in the video. Then after they go through that, there's a few other notions and whatever, but they expect to be done with that presentation about 1 o'clock. I'm sorry, about an hour later. So that would be about noon local time here. We're going to allow for a break, about a 1 hour break after that. And the purpose of that break is to give the teams that watch the broadcast or the kickoff, or the ones who read 12 o'clock Eastern as being 12 o'clock Central, to go through, re-review the video, download the game manuals, print them out, review them, and so forth before we start our kickoff event at 1 o'clock local time. So there'll be about an hour break. We'll start our broadcast at 1 o'clock local time. And we're going to do a similar thing that we may replay the game animation video. We'll probably do that just before 1 to not eat into our time at 1 o'clock. For people to be able to see the game animation. And then we are going to have a field and field elements set up where we can do a walkthrough of the game, and we'll cover anything that we think was missed in the first one. And also, it'll be much more interactive and much less presentational, so that as team members have questions about, like they really would like to see this particular component up close, or they want to see how such and such device works, or they want to understand something about the game rules, or see, different aspects of the field. What we used to enable teams to do in our in-person kickoffs, where we'd let them come up on the stage and actually physically touch all the elements. We can't easily do that in a virtual thing, but we can be touching them and moving them for you. I plan to have rulers and tape measures and scales available. So if somebody says, I want to know how much blah, blah, blah weighs, we'll be able to tell you. If you want to know how large it is, we'll be able to show you. To get a sense of what the field setup is and the like. So it's really designed to be a very interactive session, as we've done in the past. We'll have reviewed the rules before that webinar, and we'll point out some of the key rules that we think teams need to be aware of for the upcoming season, as we've done in the past, and some key parts about scoring, a little bit of scoring strategy. Emily Esch has agreed to join our webinar on Saturday. She's the chief referee for the region, and I've already given her a copy of the rules to study, so please don't bug her for those. She won't give them to you. But then you would be able to you'll be able to ask questions of somebody who actually has some official, at least within the region, understanding of the rules and an idea of how they would be ruled upon. So it should be a really fun event on Saturday. So I'm hoping that people will join us. If you want to sign up for that, there's a Roboplex page. So let me go to the Roboplex page for it here real quick. For those, I think everybody here, looks like most of the people here are veterans. But for those people who aren't, I'll just briefly introduce Roboplex. We will be using Roboplex again this year. Roboplex is just it's a website for robotics competitions that take place in the North Texas area. It's primarily been for First Lego League and First Tech Challenge, although there are a few other competitions that show up there from time to time. And it's a shorthand for robotics and the Metroplex, so Roboplex, because it is really North Texas facing, or North Texas centered. And you can go to the FTC page that's there, and on the First Tech Challenge page is where we have links to different things that will be taking place as we learn about them throughout the season. So you can see that we already have one upcoming FTC event for the season. As the season starting next week, I will probably be adding these chat clinics in as calendar entries. And as we learn about other scheduling things like scrimmages and events, they will certainly appear here as well as being posted to the FTC Google group. You can see the kind of things that were there last year. So last year there were training workshops. There were workshops that other groups did, such as STEM Pump did some nice set of workshops for programming in Java and doing FTC, their FTC boot camp. Scrimmages, as they were announced, were posted here. And then, of course, the league meets and the competition events were all posted here. So Roboplex will certainly be up to date. For the kickoff that's coming up on Saturday, if you go to Roboplex FTC and then you follow this link, then you'll get to the page that has the web registration and you can register for it there. We have room for 500 people in the webinar for this kickoff, so sign up. When you join on Saturday, if you're number 501, it's probably going to tell you to switch over to Twitch. I think we're going to have a Twitch stream and or a YouTube stream running simultaneously. They'll be on about a 10 or 20 second delay, but that shouldn't be that big a deal. But if for some reason, we end up with a lot of registrations and more people than our account can handle, we will have the backup stream for those people who are there. We're not at 500 registrations yet, but it only opened yesterday, so we'll have to wait and see how many people are there. So definitely look forward to the kickoff. If you have questions in advance or things that in advance that you would like us to cover at the kickoff, then we certainly will. One thing is I don't plan to cover a lot of season details at the kickoff. I'm really planning to focus on the game itself. At past workshops, the way we did it is that we would start in the morning by covering news for the season, and then when the game was released, all the discussion after that would generally be just about the game. My thinking there is that for most team members, once the game is released, that's all they really want to talk or think about. So if that's really what we want the focus to be, and because the season issues are not immediate, they're not urgent, they're not coming down the pike anytime soon, I'll just save that for a later broadcast, a later webinar of some sort, where we can pass information about what things to expect in the upcoming season. So that's the plan for the kickoff this weekend. I'm hoping to see many of you there. Anything else? Again, I was planning a demo for tonight, and I couldn't do that. If I turned my camera around 180 degrees and it had X-ray vision through the wall, you'd be able to see the field, but I'm not going to do that. I am getting tired of building fields, though. So we're going to have 5 or 6 of them for this season. Once you get to about the 3rd or 4th one, it's a bit of a challenge. Joe, I was thinking about inviting you over to build a field with me.
I can help.
Well, yeah, but we probably don't have time to do it. And I didn't even get the build instructions till yesterday morning. So.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's been a challenging year or whatever. The build itself is not too bad.
You built one?
I built one, and it's not too bad. There's 1 or 2 steps that are a little challenging, and the build instructions even say, like, this is the hardest step in the process. They warn you in advance to be able to do that. And as a result of my experiences doing it and the experience of another FTA in another part of Texas, I'm actually planning to put out an annotated build guide, assembly guide. So taking the Andy Mark instructions that they publish, and I've gone through and annotated it with a bunch of notes about my experience while building it, where it's like, I really wish they had answered this question for me and I didn't have to go look it up. So that will be published as well on Saturday.
Quick question.
Yes.
Will it fit in the back of your Mazda 6?
I can't answer that, Joe.
Oh, man.
I can't answer that.
It doesn't give anything about a real field, but you could fit last year's and year before's. And
yeah,
year
I mean, last year I could do a full 1 field event in my Mazda, right?
Yeah.
you know, and that was a full field, walls, tiles, all the scoring systems, all that. And same thing for, in fact, last year I could do a one field event not without the scoring systems and an FLL set in my Mazda and an FLL table. So yeah, you know, last year was pretty good. The game designers have been very good in recent years about making the field elements so that you don't have to have a big truck to move them around. Ever since Rescue was horrible. And if you were around for the Rescue season, you know how big the mountains were that they had you construct. And to try and transport those fit in my then Volkswagen Passat. If I took them apart enough, I could do that.
Almost anything will fit if you take it apart enough.
Yeah. Well, so was it last? Was it this? It was this group. Was it this group last week where I showed the actual boxes?
Yes.
Yeah. I can just do that again for those who weren't here last week. I can at least show you the boxes that they come in.
What about with your X-ray vision camera? Then we can see.
Let's see here. So this was my front doorstep a week ago Saturday. Just a minute while I change the camera angle. There we go. That was my front doorstep a week ago Saturday. That represents 6 game sets, 2 perimeter walls and tiles altogether, and a set of tools for being able to put it all together, and some, you know, some field wall bags and the like.
So everybody's seen the game set or the game now, right?
Right.
Well, in boxes.
Yeah, in boxes.
Details.
Right. So yes, you can fit the game element. I could fit like 4 fields of game elements in my car, in the trunk of my car, no problem, in the flat pack form that they are there. I could do that. But
Lots of disassembly.
Yeah. Once you assemble it, they are not so flat. So beyond that, I will now not give too many more pieces away or details away. So it does ship pretty nicely. But once it's assembled, I'm not going to say whether it'll fit in my car or not. Yeah, I'm not going to say. So, but you know, last year after about the first event was when I realized how easy it was for me to rent vans, minivans from UT Dallas, or using UT Dallas. And so after the first event, I basically said, oh no, we're renting a minivan from now on. And there in a minivan, we could easily put a full 2-field event in a minivan last year. And probably 2-field event would probably fit in a minivan this year. So with the seats folded down and all of that. So I think, you know, so it's not super big. I will say it's not super big.
So the old minivan rule still applies.
Still applies, right?
They used to say that you could always fit it in the back of a minivan.
So this one, a 1-field event, and when I say event, I mean more than just walls, tiles, and game elements, because you've also got to have scoring systems and projectors and all the other pieces that make the event work. You know, timing systems, timing monitors, things like that. So that would fit. So it's a pretty good setup. But it's definitely not as big as Rescue was. I can say that pretty easily, just because
that one
I think
was kind of a hassle.
Yeah, there would be a revolt among partners if that was the case. Oh, somebody called me naughty, or called somebody naughty. So cool. All right. Well, I don't have a lot of other news for tonight. Again, you know, everything is just kind of pending, waiting for the kickoff on Saturday. Is there any other questions or news that people would like to ask about or think about? Yes, I see Scott raising his hand.
one of these little chats we had a couple weeks ago, you were working on showing people how to use that Fusion 360
Yes.
CAD program, and that looks really, really cool. I know at school I'm trying to find something that's free to use with the kids who are on Chromebooks and stuff now because of the COVID. And you mentioned OnShape.
OnShape.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I haven't tried it yet.
Well, I tried to play with it, and there were some things I found really frustrating, like how simple it was to watch you change the length of an extruded piece. I couldn't find anywhere to edit any of the dimensions in a piece that you imported in OnShape. So I was wondering if anybody else has had some time to play with that app. Any tips? Anybody?
I have one team member who is trying to convince us to switch from Fusion to OnShape, but I'm saying no without even knowing a whole lot about OnShape, but mostly because we're using a lot of the CAM stuff in Fusion. So so I might be able to forward that question on to him and see if he has an answer for you.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, I'm really curious about how do you, if you have a piece that's already set, is
Like RevRail, certain
yeah,
ones,
yeah,
RevRail,
exactly. And you know, it comes in a standard 1 meter piece, and I'm like, I need 10 inches, and it's really easy to do in Fusion. And like, but I don't use either one of those. We've been using Inventor,
Right.
but the kids can't use that at home on Chromebooks and stuff. So I'm trying to figure out what to do because the school year's already started. Like,
I would.
Yeah, Dallas ISD switched to Chromebooks, and it's a real problem. But we have enough PCs among our crew that they're able to stick with Fusion.
well, I had enough PCs last year, but since we weren't around to gather them back in at the end of the year, it's like the wrong kids have them.
Right. Yeah.
So Leah suggests in the chat to ask the folks at OnShape. The other place I would definitely ask is on the Google group.
Oh yeah.
Like on the North Texas Google group, just post it there. And then I'm also going to give a shout out to Rachel Moore. She is one of the coaches at Conrad High School in Dallas. And they have both FRC and FTC teams, but she's the one who put me on to OnShape in the first place. So if you just send a message to Rachel Moore, if you message me, I can get you her contact information pretty easily. She could easily pass it on to one of their students because they're doing a lot of OnShape for the Conrad teams. And
I didn't know that the Conrad's been our big brother team for the last several years. So we have some pretty good
reach out to Conrad,
guys.
right?
I didn't know they were on that path. So thanks for the tip.
She was, you know, she was really strongly saying, you know, OnShape is good specifically because it does work with the Chromebooks, which is another important feature that you just mentioned, and they've been able to do a lot. Also, she was a fan of the library of parts they already had available for teams to use. Certainly in the FRC realm, I don't know how it is in the FTC realm. Yeah, reach out to Conrad, and for those who don't have a direct connection to Conrad, as Scott does, you know, definitely feel free to post those kind of things to the Google group. The Google group is not meant to be just, you know, me posting announcements. It's also a place where people with questions like what you just said can say, you know, hey, you know, we're interested in using OnShape. Has anybody tried this? And you'll get an answer pretty quickly, I think. It is on my you know, future wish list of tasks to do to give OnShape a try and do the same exercise I did in Fusion 360, but learn how to do it in OnShape so that I can tell people about that as well. So yeah.
So can Fusion 360 be used on the Chromebooks?
No, it's in the cloud, but only for storage of your data and your object and your models. It does the processing locally on your PC, so you really need to have a Windows machine or a Macintosh to be able to use Fusion 360. It won't work on a Chromebook. But Onshape, supposedly you basically just need a browser. So, and I haven't tried that out myself, but that's apparently what their requirements are. So we'll find out. And in fact, my account that we use for 7172 with Fusion 360 just expired this past week. So I now have to contact Autodesk and say, hey, can we get re-upped for another year? Or if not, then we may be switching to Onshape. But I'm certain we won't do that because, like Kareem suggested for his teams, we really need the CAM features for our robots to be able to do the cutting of plates and the things with our CNC mill. So we definitely need to be able to do that. Leah Milton asks or suggests not only asking the folks on Onshape, but that it does work on iPads. So if it works on an iPad, I'm pretty sure it should be able to work on a Chromebook somehow. So that would be nice.
Well, and in their advertising and stuff, they say you can even do it on a cell phone, any device.
Yeah, so I think it just needs a browser. But you're right. You know, with every CAD package, you end up having to learn what are the steps you need to do for the different operations that are there, and they're all slightly different depending on what model of CAD they're using and things like that. And so, just learning those tips and tricks is a lot of the key to doing it. So I know from my personal perspective I want to get good resources out to teams in the region. It's worth it for me to spend some time learning Onshape and then doing another demo like I did a couple of weeks ago, but build the same robot in Onshape so people can see what that's like and if that would fit their needs better, and have a good weighing of the pluses and minuses of the different CAD packages. So
well, one thing I wanted to give you too is a shout out that the way you went about it and like you talked through like why would you want to you line up these two items with the center, or why would you want to measure from the end? I thought that you did a really great job as a teacher by helping people understand like, well, yeah, why would you do that? Or why would you do it from here?
Right.
So, hey, 2 thumbs up. Well
Thanks.
done.
I will say for my 7172 team, we've been meeting twice a week through Zoom for the past several weeks. And it's all just been CAD sessions, much like what I did there, where take a component. So for example, this last weekend, or Tuesday night when we met, I walked through the design of this piece, the odometry tracking wheel. And yeah, you know, as doing that, it was not just here's how to make it work in Fusion, but at each step saying why you need that part or why you need that consideration and so forth, to be able to put it together. And I mean, that's my background is teaching technical subjects, so I like doing that. But one thing I will say that we've come out with out of that, which is a hint that other teams, it might work for other teams. We don't even know if it'll work for us, is our plan going into the season, because we aren't physically meeting, even though technically we probably could, because we're not a school team, so we're not under prohibitions by a district or anything. But for safety reasons, the team members have decided they'll do it remotely. But what they're intending to do is we're going to do the same sort of exercise that I did, where somebody has the Fusion 360 open and they work on the design with a bunch of other people watching at the same time through a Zoom meeting. So somebody will be sharing screen, but it won't be me doing the Fusion 360. It'll be one of the team members. And to walk through those design things, and then because my team's going to be fairly young this year, if they get stuck on a Fusion 360 operation, I can kind of talk them through it, right? Say, you might need to join here, or I or any other team member can say, hey, what about this? Did you consider this? And the team can work on it collaboratively through the CAD package, and bringing in parts and saying, what about this, what about that, and so forth. And so we're going to be trying that over the next few weeks as our model for how to design the robot. I've been talking with coaches throughout the state over the past few weeks about how are they planning to run their teams, when you're having difficulties meeting, and almost all of them say it's going to be heavy CAD for the first month. Just a lot of CAD design, which is good. I mean, that's a good thing. But I know from experience with my teams in the past that if your team members aren't comfortable with the tool, it becomes very hard to work on higher level concepts with it. So by putting them in the driver's seat where they have a co-driver, much like if you were, I guess a good analogy would be like, if you're trying to teach somebody to drive a car, right? And you go to student driving school, what happens is you let them drive, but you have a responsible adult with them that can help and take over in case of an emergency, right? And so we're going to try the same thing, I think, where at each meeting, or even at different points in a meeting, we're going to switch whoever is driving the CAD model and let them all get experience with that. As we go through a couple of weeks of that and they get comfortable with the mechanics of working in their CAD package, then I'm hoping we'll just be able to start turning them loose and saying, okay, go design this piece, or continue the design we started, even though we're not meeting at the same time, and then they can report back on it like we did last year, where we had some CAD experts already on the team at the beginning of the season. So that's what we're trying. And I will be sharing tips that I learned from other teams, and sharing my team's experiences throughout the year, just because we want everybody to have a really successful season. And we know that there's going to be some challenges that this season poses because of the restrictions on when and where you can meet, but at the same time it provides some opportunities, so we're going to try and exploit those. So good question. Thank you. Let's see. I got a question in the chat asking if I had uploaded the Fusion 360 Zooms. I did. I need to make a page where I can summarize where they are uploaded. It went out in one of the messages to the Google group. I think it was last week or week before, but I'll put a page on Roboplex, just saying, here's all of the chat clinics that we've had and what the topics were in each one, and be able to have those posted. I have not posted last week's video yet. I'll be doing that here, probably not till Sunday. I'm kind of busy between now and Saturday because there's an event going on Saturday, and I've got to get some stuff together to make all that happen. Any other comments or questions? All right, well, I'm happy for this to be a shorter session, because I know that for the next 5 to 8 to 10 weeks, we're going to have these calls and they're going to run for 2 hours, because I have a lot I have a lot of topics to possibly present, and a lot of topics to look at, that people can that we can look at. Let's see here. In fact, I'll just pop up here real quick. These are some of the topics that I've put together or thought of already for upcoming seminars. If you wish to weigh in and vote on some of them, then please feel free to do that and say, please do this earlier, please do this later, and so on. I'm going to go ahead and put, I'm going to go ahead and add in here, on Shape, was it on Shape? CAD, as well as another CAD package to look at. And so that's kind of my plan, of topics I can already think of. I'm certain that I'll be able to come up with more in the upcoming weeks. So there's plenty to discuss once the game is out, in terms of how are you getting this to work? Is this legal? Is, what kind of mechanism are teams doing? How many points do we think teams will be getting? Those kind of questions. But at the moment, I'm kind of like blocked on being able to go too much further till the game's released. So programming with encoders. Yes, I will add that. I will add programming with encoders to the list as well.
Have you actually seen the rule set for the game?
Yes.
Okay.
No, actually, let me rephrase that to be very precise. I have them. I have not read them yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I have them because they normally release them to the partners about a week or so in advance. And I have a personal rule that I will not read them until I know I'm not going to have any more contact with my team until the release. Right. I mean, I don't want to have any temptation, not that I'm very tempted, to discuss anything with my team about the upcoming season. In the Relic Recovery season, was it Relic Recovery? No, yeah, Relic Recovery season. No, it wasn't Relic Recovery. In the Rover Ruckus season, I learned in June and saw an example of the field, and that 3 months after that was the hardest 3 months. To just like, just not, hey, we want to try doing this, this mechanism, and it's just, you just want to sit there and say, oh, you're not going to need that. No, you can't do that, right? Or here's what you really should be looking at. You can't do that. And so I did manage to keep that silence throughout the summer. But they knew I knew, so they were constantly doing things like, like you're doing, like, are any of them yellow, right? They're like, blink once if it has this. And I wouldn't blink, and they're like, okay, he didn't blink, so that means it doesn't have that. And I'd be like, no, it doesn't mean that. Right? So I
was taking it in a certain direction. It's like I was going to ask, and we closed it. I was going to ask, are you excited? Do you think it's going to be a fun game?
I think it's a good, when I saw it, I think it's a good game. And the people I've talked to who also have been able to see it also think it's a good game. I've not had anybody say, oh, this is a snoozer, right? I've not had anybody say, if you're familiar with FRC, nobody has said, oh, it's Recycle Rush. And there, when I say it's not Recycle Rush, if you were in FRC, I'm not saying anything about the actual game mechanics. It's just that game was done the way it was for a variety of reasons, but from an audience perspective, it was not much to look at. And from a game challenge, it was not necessarily very good. This one is challenging enough that I know my team will have a good time with the challenge and will be challenged. And so, and all teams will be challenged. And it's not so complicated that it's going to leave people behind. I think it's going to be a good game. So you'll see on Saturday. So anyway, I have the rules. I have not read them. And I got a copy of them because I wanted to get them to Emily so that she could be familiar with them prior to Saturday. And we are authorized to do that under non-disclosures. We're allowed to give copies of the materials to our key volunteers in the region, but they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So and Emily's trustworthy about that stuff anyway. So yes and no. Yes, I have them. No, I haven't read them.
Okay, I've got a question.
Yes.
And to some people it might be silly, but for me, it's not. But so this year I've decided with running the school team, I've got 28 kids that we're going to all learn coding.
Okay.
At least the basics for it. Hoping that this will get us more understanding and more kids may get into the coding side of it. So I've run into a problem and I need to see if you can tell me how to fix it. So I've got 8 push bots that we've gone to you and you've showed us how to build. So I've got 4 classes. So that means a couple of my classes have 10 in them and the other ones have less than 8. So we have enough bots. But in the code side of it, when we get into it, I've got like the name of the code 4 kids are using. So it's when we tried to compile it all today, it was throwing out a ton of energy or errors, but from everybody's robot. So everybody that was using robot 7, all their code, all their mistakes were on one. And so,
right.
Is there a way to make it as an individual so that each of them have their own individual, or is it just?
So let me restate what you just said in one to make sure I'm understanding it. So you have 8 push bots, which effectively means you have 8 control hubs or 8 robot
Yes,
controllers,
control hubs,
right?
Yes.
And so what's happening is that those 8 robots are having to be shared among multiple programmers, not all at the same time, but at different times throughout the day. And
Correct.
what one programmer leaves on the robot when the next one comes in, even if they're working in an entirely different copy or set of code, any errors that were in the first programmer's one will still prevent it from compiling. Because the control hub doesn't see the modules or whatever you write as being separate programs. It thinks of everything as being one big program and that they all have to work. They all have to work. So I don't know of a way to configure the control hub to work to like create different silos or different sandboxes for people to do. What I would probably try is at the end of the day, when, or as you're getting close to the end of a class session, or when your programmer is getting close to being done, have them download a copy of their code. And you can just do that by, I don't have one handy or I would do it online, but have them right click on the thing and download a copy of the entire code, the zip file. If you right click on the folder that contains all of the code that they've written, there's a download option. If it contains multiple files, it'll all come in as one big zip file. And that way they have a copy and they take that with them or save it on a drive somewhere. They save it somewhere, not on the robot.
Right.
And then when the next person comes in, their first step is to clear the robot and then load whatever they left off with from their previous session from their zip file.
Okay. So on the
Right.
zip file, would it upload what they've already done then?
Yes. So what you can't upload the zip file directly, but you can unzip it and then upload all of the Java files all at once. It's really,
Okay.
really quick. And again, if I might have, wait, actually, I might have, let me go grab a robot real quick. I might be able to demo this real quick. Let me see
Okay.
if I can do it.
We're talking about OnBot Java?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
So this is Santosh speaking. My team also has like a bunch of control hubs, and there are members that are working on programming or like learning the coding side. Or, and we are, instead of using onboard Java, we are using the Android Studio, and that kind of helps us out. Like we are using, like the kids have their own PCs and they run their like write their code on the PC or laptop, and they just download while as a one click on the Android Studio, and that program gets loaded on the control hub, and that solves our issue. Like we don't have to worry. Everything is on their PC rather than on their on the control hub.
Okay. Gee, that whole damn pizza. I know, but that's why we put on so much weight, Jared. Yeah. By not eating all that also creates that problem.
Patrick, do you intend that your mute is still on?
Muted.
All right, I'm back. So what I went and got is, this is a little $10 Wi-Fi dongle. It's useful if you have a laptop or otherwise.
Right.
I'll have links to it and whatever. This gives you an additional Wi-Fi port on your computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, as I have. And what you can do is connect to the robot through this Wi-Fi port and leave your computer device also connected to the internet, so you're not having to disconnect. It's really handy. So I'm going to plug it into my computer and see if I can get connected to the robot, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I plug that in. Let's see if it pops up in my thing. Let's see here.
Hey, does anybody know if DISD would block a device like that in your computer lab or something?
No, they won't. I mean, they shouldn't, because that device is not acting as a hotspot. It's acting as a client. Now they could. I mean, they might block your robot. Your robot's acting as a hotspot, and that's a problem, like in Plano IST. But the actual dongle, it's just like having a Wi-Fi adapter in your phone or your computer or whatever it may happen to be. So shouldn't be a problem. Let's see here. Did I get connected? Not yet. I have to go through and remember what the password is for this robot. This is configuring the interface. Let's try that. Okay, it wasn't that one. Let's try this one here. And if this doesn't work here real quick, then I will definitely do this in a future chat clinic or post a video about it. Okay, we'll see. Let's try the universal password. Hey, that worked. Okay. All right. 168.68.43.18080. There we go. All right. So I'm going to switch over to Chrome. Actually, I'm not going to do it through, I'm going to share my screen more directly here. So, all right. So I got connected to my robot controller. Hopefully you all can see this. I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger to make it a bit easier to see. So right now I've got a robot here beside me. It's the Mechanism Drive robot that I've been building. It's got a Rev control hub on it, and I'm just connected directly through the browser to the control hub. If you're not familiar with the programming, if you're a newer coach and you haven't done on-bot Java programming, we will be covering that in a session. So I'm going to go to on-bot Java. And so, Don, what you're describing is the case where you've got multiple students who have got code in the robot at the same time. So I'm just going to create very quickly an extra item here. Let's see. So I want to add a new file, and this one's going to be PM autonomous .java, and I'm going to use as a sample. I'm going to pretend that I was with let's see here. I'm going to start with sensor. I'm going to do the, no, not the modern robotics range sensor. That's evil. Let's do the color sensor. Now I'll just do the sample code for the color sensor. And
hey, Don, can you mute your microphone?
Yeah, Don, you got some background noise there.
Your TV is making it hard to hear.
Sorry about that.
No problem. All right. So here I have these two files. So what I'm suggesting might be a possibility is when you have a bunch of files here, so these are the ones that one student has worked on, that student can then right-click on the team code file and do download. And when you do that, it brings down a file that's called team code that is a zip file to the local device, to a computer, whatever it may happen to be. You could then save that to a flash drive. You could save it to a Google Docs folder. You know, I don't know what the storage thing is, but now you have the zip file. And inside the zip file are the Java files. Let's see if I can open this here. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder. Let's see here. I'm going to go to my downloads folder and look in that zip file there. And you can see that the zip file contains the Java code that that I just did. So that's that person's
You're
code.
still showing.
Oh no, I'm still showing the other screen, right? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm still learning Zoom. Let me stop sharing and let me see if I can share. Okay. Let me share. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do it this way. I am going to do it this way. Let's share the screen. There we go. Sorry for the, all right. Now I can't minimize. Well, I can put it over there. All right. So let me get my Zoom windows out of the way here. All right, so I downloaded the zip file, and in that zip file are these two Java files. Those are what were in the on the robot at the time I did the download. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the download. And what I'm saying is the next student who comes in, the first thing that they can do is get rid of everything that's here, right? So you could just multiple click these files and hit delete. And I'm just going to say, go ahead and delete them. And now they're starting from a clean project and they can be writing their programs, and whatever was left on the robot before won't interfere with what they are doing now. If they have programs that they left off from a previous session, like let's say that I'm the student that had just saved the zip files and now it's a day or two later and I want to pick up from where I left off, I would start by clearing off everything that was already on the robot, and then I would go to the zip file, and let me go back to my zip file that's here. I'm going to extract those into my desktop here. I'm just going to extract them into my home directory. And now I can go through, and there's an upload option here. And in the upload option, I can go through and find those Java files. Where did they go? Oh, there they are. They're in the team code folder. And I can grab both of those and upload them back into the project, and now they're there again. Right, and so now I'm able to start back from where I had left off that time before. So you're not having the robot try and manage different people. You're just starting a work process whereby when you come in, you clear off whatever was on the robot before, you upload the files from where you left off the previous time, you do your changes, you do your programming for the day. When you get done with that, or at various times throughout the day, just download a new copy of the zip file so that you have it. And then you are able to restart at any time from an empty robot. The other advantage of doing it this way is you don't even have to worry about which students have used which robot, because it's always going to be start out by clearing off the code that's on the robot and then upload the code from the last time that you started. So you don't have to worry about, that Alice was on robot number 1 and Bob was on robot number 2 and so forth, because whatever robot they're starting with, they're just going to clear off the code and then add theirs in. As long as the configurations are the same, you're in good shape there. If the configurations from one robot to the next are changing, then you have to worry about the configuration files. One thing that, oops, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put that in there like that. One thing I do wish existed in the software, I put it in as a feature request, is I wish there was a way to download the robot configuration through this interface. That would be really nice if I could just say, give me a copy of the robot configuration file through this interface, and then I'd have a copy of that as well. But that, at least as of this version of the program, it's not there. There should be a new version of the software coming out this weekend as well, or certainly with very close now, that is updated for the Ultimate Goal season. So am I allowed to say what the game is called? Yes, okay. For the Ultimate Goal season. So anyway, does that kind of answer the question, Don, for you?
Yes, quite a bit.
Okay, good. So that's my first one. And again, I kind of threw that together here real quick. I see some questions in the chat channel, so let me throw those in. Excuse me. The question is, each kid would have their own USB to save their files? Yes, or their own place to save files. Just some way of keeping track of that zip file that comes down from onbot Java. You can save it to a USB drive. That's real convenient. I know it, like at Dallas ISD for a while. I haven't been there recently. Every student had like a student network account of some sort, and you could save it there into the student drive folder. They would be able to save it that way. So it depends on how school districts and schools are providing storage space to their students. Okay, any other questions? Anyway, try that, Don. Let us know how it works out. And if it doesn't work, you know, the other nice thing about saving zip files, and my team would do that all the time. And there's a question that came up in the chat about the pros of using Discord. During a team meeting, or especially during programming sessions, every so often, whoever was doing the programming would right-click, get that zip file, and download it, and then they would post it to the Discord channel. They would post the copy of the zip file to the Discord channel. And what that meant was all of the other programmers could download that file and see what changes were made, but it also gave them automatic backups of the software as it was being developed over time, so that they would be able to say, you know, here's the way the software existed as of 8:30 p.m. Or whenever our meeting was taking place. And everybody just knew where to go look for it. They could just knew that if you needed to go find the latest version of the software, it's posted in the Discord channel as a zip file. And there was even one time where we were at a competition and something went wrong and the code completely disappeared from our robot. We don't know why, but somebody went out of the venue, they connected to Discord, downloaded the zip file, uploaded it back on the robot, and they were good to go. So it was a really good backup to have. So if you have some sort of instant messaging platform or other communications platform that will allow you to upload files to it, then being in the habit of downloading the entire copy of the code as a zip file and posting it somewhere is a really good habit to get into.
So each one of my students has to post their code to me every day when they're done writing.
Oh, yeah.
So we drop it into a Google Doc, and then they just share it with me, and I go through it, check it, and anyways, so it's something new we're doing this year. Like I said, it's always been, I've had the 4 programmers, 1 on each team, and then anybody interested kind of sat with them and worked with them. But I felt like we needed to be more rounded. Everybody knows a little bit about all of it. So after we get done with our coding session, then we're going to do a CAD session with everybody has to learn CAD instead of just the person that's assigned on that team to do the CAD.
That's a reasonably common model that a lot of teams and a lot of regions are recommending, is to say, make sure everybody gets an experience in the many different phases of doing that. And the reports that they have been giving is that, especially for like programming, they make everybody do programming, and they always talk about that 1 or 2 students that had no idea they would like programming, but because of that, they discovered that was their thing. And so if you're looking, especially, you know, to increase your programming crew, your programming staff, that's not a bad way to go about finding out who has an aptitude for it, who doesn't even know it themselves. So what you're describing, you started your question by saying it may sound weird or silly or anything like that, and I'm here to confirm it's a good way to do things, or other people say it's a good way to do things.
What's brought that up is our region is talking about, if we do go start having the live events and everything, that we may be only limited to bringing so many kids.
Yep.
And so now a team of 10 or 12, I've got to decide who's going to be, you know, most productive for going. And I told the kids, you know, those students that work strictly on the notebook, do you really need to be there for the meet? You know, because
Right.
your notebook's finished by that time.
Right.
So I said, so we need to be well-rounded all the way around. And I'm going to take a person that knows 5 or 6 things compared to someone that just knows how to do one thing.
Right.
So,
right.
So
The
that's why
other
I've gone that
Right.
route.
Yeah. The other thing that I certainly would consider doing in the North Texas region, so you guys are in the Panhandle, of course, but in the North Texas region, is if we do end up having traditional events with limited attendance, is to really work hard with the venue to make sure we have some good quality bandwidth available. Because I would want the students who are on site at the event to be able to communicate very quickly with their team members. Either, that they could set up a Discord session, or they could set up a chat session, or whatever they've been used to using, so that if they do run into issues at the event, they're not on their own. Right. And I know that, like, for Dallas ISD, that's doable. For our sites that we've hosted events at within Dallas ISD, they have sufficient bandwidth and capabilities that would be possible. For Plano ISD, I'm sure it could happen. For almost all the venues that I can think of that we've done, where we've done in-person events, we ought to be able to get, and I would work hard to arrange, if it's not available, really good high-speed internet access for the teams to the broadband internet, so that they are not cut off from their teammates during an event. So maybe I'll pass that along to the West Texas folks, or maybe you can suggest that as well. To say that if those kind of events happen, what can be done to enable the team members to continue to work as a team, even though only a few of them can attend. So that's a very good point to bring up, and I'm glad to hear that. Okay, any others? I'm seeing the snaps from Scott with the Thunder Chicks and so forth. It's 8:30, so I'm going to go ahead and wind this down. I appreciate all of you being here. These are fun for me. I'm glad to see that people continue to attend and come back. They're a lot of fun for me, and they're really good discussions for me as a coach and for me as a partner to be having with everybody, to learn what's happening out in the field and to get ideas just like what we've had in this nice conversations with Don. So thank you all for being here. I hope to see many of you at the kickoff on Saturday, virtually online. It is being done as a Zoom webinar and not a Zoom meeting, so I won't be able to see your faces quite as much because we don't know how many will be there. But please feel free to ask questions and stuff through the question and answer forms that we have there, and we'll promote a few people to presenters if the questions get big enough. And then look for next week. We'll definitely have a chat clinic next Thursday. We may have more in rapid succession, just because there are so many topics that will come up quickly. And I'm very pleased to have coaches on. If you want to have your key team members start joining these, then that's fine as well. And they can ask questions as well. So just like we used to do with our in-person clinics. And we'll see y'all later. Have a good couple of days. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.